Falls Public Teachers. Welcome back to day 3. This is the orange section, and it's going to be all about debit and credit. One thing you're going to notice is that in the original lesson plans from JUSA, there were 4 modules within this unit, and due to our time constraints, we had to condense that down. So please note that we actually omitted lesson 1, banking partners, and we encourage you to do the lesson 2, personal spending, as an abbreviated overview. So for about 15 minutes, we're just going to be talking about the basics of credit and debit and the difference between the two and some advantages and disadvantages. Then we're going to move into lesson 3, which is savvy shopping. That's the game board, and it's a lot of fun. It's very interactive, and it's going to be the heart of this activity today. And then to wrap it up, we're going to condense managing credit and talking a little bit about credit scores. Again, depending on how much time, we're hoping you reserve about 15 to 20 minutes for that section. So the PowerPoint may not be as helpful today as in previous sessions, or you might just want to jump in and delete out a few additional slides or hide a few additional slides. But again, it's good content. As always, the student workbooks are going to have the vocabulary in them, so have the students reference that, and even if you abbreviate some things, they're still going to have that full content if they're interested. The number one thing we need to just talk about is what is debit versus credit? What are the pros and what are the cons? And so there is this slide that walks you through some of that information. We also have some very simplified ways that might be a little bit more understandable to the students in the teaching guide. There is in their guidebook a page that would allow them on their vocabulary page. There's just an open box here, and this would be a really great spot for them just to make a T-chart with credit versus debit, and you guys could just do a verbal brainstorm on some of those pros and cons and just what are the differences and what are some of the different types that would fall under each of those categories. So again, we want you to kind of just do a high-level overview. We're assuming they have kind of a baseline knowledge of that, but we realize that the students are going to need to know that too. The biggest part is that debit obviously is buy now, pay now, and you'll notice as we move forward, credit is buy now, pay later. We want you to fold in some of your real world experiences because of course that is going to be the things that resonate most with the students. There is a sample credit card statement within the slideshow that you could showcase how credit works. And we want to touch high level on just the cost of using credit. They need to know that it's not free money. They do have to pay it back, and then with interest if they don't pay it off within that originally agreed upon time frame. So this just kind of gives them that quick showcase of how quickly it can snowball. Again, you might not get to all of these slides, but you can talk about prepaid cards. You can go into bankruptcy and foreclosure if you want to, but that might be a little bit deep for what we need at this point. The bulk of our time together is going to be having them play the Savvy Shopper board game. And this is a lot of fun. There's just a tiny bit of prep that you would need to do either before the actual time frame, or just know that you need a couple minutes for the students to prep it. JA has provided a baggie of chips. There should be 32 in there of a variety of colors, and then 6 dice. So each student in each group, in theory, would want a different color, and then the dice, they would each group would need 1 die. If for some reason you don't have the dice or there's not enough, you can also use coins or candy or just pieces of paper cut up. It just doesn't matter. Then we have the game cards, and this is the piece we need your help with to cut apart. So you can either have 1 student in each group cut them apart right away, or if you want to prep that piece prior to the event and paper clip them and then hand them out, you can do that as well. But just know that that is 1 piece that was not pre-done for you. And then we have the game board. So I'm going to show you what this game board looks like. It is a lot of fun. There is a tally sheet in the student workbook, which I lost mine. Here it is. And so it's just a general ledger. So you might need to talk a little bit about that with the students, make sure that they understand how to use this page. This is going to be their general ledger. And then on the bottom, there are all of these specific items that they're supposed to purchase. So I guess I jumped too quickly. The goal is to be the first player to buy food, jeans, headphones, shoes, and concert tickets and have $0 debt. Okay. So that's the goal. And how to get there is they are going to be obviously starting on start. They start with $50. And the directions are all here in green. So maybe read them aloud as the whole class, make sure everyone's on the same page. But what they're going to do is each time they pass start, they're going to collect $50. Each time they land on payday, they get to collect $50. If they land on a fee square, they need to write the amount in the negative or subtraction column of their tally sheet. And they're going to just keep running that tally of their purchases and what you owe. They're going to roll the die. The player is going with the highest number goes first, but they're just going to continue to proceed counterclockwise. Follow the directions on the squares as they land, and they're going to fill in their tally sheet. If they land on food, jeans, headphones, shoes, or concert tickets, you can buy the item with either debit or credit. If you have the cash, pay the debit price. If you don't have the money, pay the credit price, and then you may choose not to purchase the item at all if they just want to wait. But ultimately, they need to purchase each of them and be debt free. So they're going to have to pay off that credit if they do put it on their credit card. It's highly engaging. The students really have fun with it. It's a basic game board, so it's not too complicated, but it does take just a little bit to get them set up and playing. So again, we want this to be the bulk of the time that they're with you this time. And then you do want to reserve the last 15 to 20 minutes to talk a little bit about managing that credit scores. So you can talk about credit reports, credit scores, talking a little bit about the fact that, in the guidebook, there's a really good scenario you can ask the students. Like if they had a friend that needed to borrow money to pay for a bike and they had a plan, would you do it? What about if a stranger came and asked you for that? What would you do? Like we need to get them to understand, like a bank doesn't know anything about the person. So a credit score is kind of like a GPA, like in high school when they get the grade point average. It gives a banking institution a little bit of an idea of what your credit risk would be. Would you be able to pay this back? So again, you can talk a little bit about how do they manage that, what affects your credit negatively. You can talk about the three reporting agencies and how they can utilize those, how their scores are broken down. This does talk a little bit more in the lesson plan as well, just a little bit about how to talk about those different score ranges and how it can affect your ability. And basically, like you really want to build that positive credit history to be able to be successful as you move forward, because there's a lot of things we can pay for cash with, but obviously there's a lot of things that we might not be able to, like housing or a vehicle or student loans. The stance from JA is not that credit is bad. It's not necessarily good. It's just neutral. It's kind of like a hammer. You can build something with it and you can also destruct something with it. It's really what you do with that money. And we really want to caution the students against putting too much on credit that they can't pay back so that they don't get into that snowball effect. The connection to the simulation is that all of the students are actually going to start with $100 credit card debt that they're going to have to pay off at the end of their month. So they have to keep that in consideration. When they're making purchases within the simulation, they are going to have the opportunity to get to pay with debit or credit. And again, they're going to need to pay off that credit, at least that minimum payment at the end of that month. So there is that element where they get to choose how they want to purchase their money. So that's how it's going to connect to their actual simulation once they come on site for that 4-hour experience. Again, have a lot of fun. Feel free to condense and rearrange as you go, but the basic concept of debit and credit is the focus of today's event. Thanks so much.